look to sort of take away the camps from the red side of Graves. He does need his bot lane top priority.
My tips and tricks for getting good at AD carry, especially for beginners, you just need to focus on like last hitting and try not to die. That's like the most important thing. And then you kind of like learn by making mistakes. So you just try to pump out as much damage as you can. And if you like get caught and stuff, then you'll learn from it and get better next time. You have to have strong mental, because sometimes things happen that are out of your control, and then you just need to accept the fact and just try your best to focus on what's next and keep your head cool.
Nice to hear from Kevo. Obviously, we heard him from in the interview before as well. And obviously, congratulations to Ents for picking up their first win in the NLC. Now, we have another game coming your way. In fact, we have 3 more today. But let's start off with the one that's coming right up. It's going to be a BTXL taking on Nordavind. And this is going to be an interesting one because Nordavind obviously have had a pretty strong start to the NLC so far. And BTXL, just from yesterday, came off a loss, of which very few people, apart from one particularly proud Dane, predicted the other way around. Let's start off with Nordavind. There was lots of questions and lots of discussions last week, Veteran, about the strength of Nordavind and where they would look to play around. What have we learned from them over the course of our first week?
Well, I mean, I find Nordavind really interesting because I'm viewing them a lot more like kind of a Riddle light, in the sense that you saw yesterday versus BTXO, Nordavind are going to have to play today, that the reason why Riddle were able to beat them is because BTXO would overgroup very heavily for their win conditions around bot lane. That was the kind of team we thought Nordavind might come in looking like, but instead they look a lot more like Riddle, who played split map scenarios, allowed BTXL to int their economy away through perpetual inefficient groupings to try to get deadly as far ahead as they possibly could, and they played that map state out really, really well. Nordavind have recognized they have multiple strengths that they could play around on their team. Instead of all-inning on one, they are taking as much advantage of the entirety of their roster as they possibly can. It could be argued that Nulty is an exception to that, but even Nulty isn't demanding that much in terms of like aggressive groupings from the rest of his team, like his counterparts on other teams are. It's much more being defensive groupings that they've undertaken to punish extensions like SNG, for example, early on in the week. I'm actually a lot more confident about this team from the more stuff that I see from them, and I think that given the success of Riddle versus BTXO yesterday, Nordavind could actually come away with a win here, and that would upset the apple cart in terms of the established top 4 that we came into this weekend with.
And I also think that Nordavind, just in general, they do look really versatile too. As we've said, they don't necessarily just play for Chrisberg. We have also seen that, if we want to highlight some people, Ericsson too, where he's actually been dismantling other mid laners with a lot of pressure. That helps this defensive style that Nolte is really setting up for. So we've seen his Zoe, we've seen his Azir there. He really likes to take control of the lane, but he also seems to be a guy that really likes to just play the fundamentals on his comfort picks. And that's really what the kind of team that I'm looking Nordavind at. They look to play fundamentals, and they're doing it really well so far. I'm looking to see how much they can keep their cool and their fundamentals when they're playing against an all-out explosive team that likes to overgroup. That's not necessarily a bad thing against a roster like Nordavind here that can be thrown up by this overgrouping.
Yeah, and I think if we're looking towards XL, what they can be doing, it's very much around this mid-jungle. Taxa hasn't been facilitating hat-tricks, and this overgrouping isn't a new tendency from XL. This is something that they did consistently over the course of them being BTXL, the academy team, and it's worked out because Special was a big crutch for them. He was facilitating this because he'd find his own priority, his own pressure mid lane, and we asked the question, will it work with hat-tricks? And I think in that game against Riddle, we got the answer, no. Something needs to change. Now, this can be Taxa putting the attention down towards mid, which is what it should be, the change, or we can see if hat-tricks can facilitate himself, which I don't specifically think is going to be necessarily possible for him to do overnight.
Well, actually talk to me about Taxa, because I think that was one of the questions that we were kind of focusing on last week. What can Taxa do differently? How does Taxa need to change, and how does that need to synergize with hat-tricks? Because it really does feel like from last week alone, we were pointing fingers towards that jungle, towards that mid duo. Veteran, what would you like to see differently from Taxa this time around?
I mean, so we can talk specifically what he should have done yesterday, but fundamentally what it is that he is missing is that he doesn't enable the win conditions of his team from draft. If he's not going to be willing to sacrifice his own jungle pathing efficiency for it, then you shouldn't opt to have him on picks like the Lee Sin. You may as well have him on Olaf, you may as well have him on Graves, these picks that he has leaned towards historically every game, but don't give him something like Lee Sin where most of the power of Lee Sin is in giving up these camps to get a better state of the map so that your laners can play out their win conditions properly. He didn't even attempt to do that yesterday. He didn't actually attempt to do that last week either. Just incidentally, Hattrick was able to unlock himself. That's what Special did, as Orcs points out. But right now, in the state that the meta is in, there are plenty of junglers that are taking the broader picture of what their team needs into account while playing the jungle efficiently. And if Taxa wants to remain relevant in conversations about the best junglers in the NLC, he has to prove that here.
Well, we'll see if he can prove it, because we're going to be heading to draft, and I think that pick is going to be influential into Tax's playstyle. Let's go to a quick break. When we're back, we'll dive into picks and bans for Nordavind versus BTXL.
Step inside the sun.
Jumping into draft, ladies and gentlemen, Nordavind versus BTXL. We've been pretty hyped for this. Whether BTXL can bounce back. You heard the guys talk about some of the issues they had in the mid-jungle combo. Nordavind, however, they've been on a bit of a good start. There has been some questions about Nulty, but he has had a pretty good set of performances so far. Let's get into this draft phase. Varus and Trundle banned. No surprises there.
I think it's... Go ahead.
Okay, so I would imagine Syndra will be the next band, and then we're looking at Aphelios Ezreal trades, and then there's potential for Karma response to that, or maybe even Karma first rotation. Would junglers be a priority here? The Graves is now being removed, so we're leaning more likely to bot lane trades, as we've seen the whole time. Yada, yada, yada. Let's see if Syndra or Varus is open again, because the last 2 drafts you've had, one of those 2 power picks has been open. What power pick would be open this time that we haven't really seen so far?
Yeah, I'm curious to see about the Syndra ban specifically. If it's not coming through as a second ban here from the red side, I'm not quite sure if they actually feel comfortable for it. Oh, we do see it here as a second red side ban. But so far, Nordavind has been banning that on red side too, obviously because it's red side. But I don't know how comfortable Chrisberg will be on a Syndra if it's a flex scenario we're out on. But that's another discussion for another time. The bans are still going through.
A big thing as well for me would be we've seen hat-tricks on the Twisted Fate, so Nordavind will want to... Okay, well, Nordavind are now banned the Kalista. I was going to say they would want to avoid the Kalista first rotation, which means that if Kalista is open and Aphelios is banned, for example, you know you're opting into Ezreal versus Kalista matchups, and depending on how XL want to play it out, and they have typically played out lanes like that to dive early on, you maybe give them exactly what they want, given that you can't go it yourself, given that you know that Twisted Fate is a potential response to it. That diminishes the value of an early pick Ezreal unless you were to go Karma straight up here, in which case you could go into either Aphelios or Ezreal, or you can gift them Ezreal Karma and see how that goes, because that has not gone that well for teams that have enjoyed having their bot lane be alive, so to say.
Yeah, just in general, I think they really just like the Aphelios and Chrisberg instead. In the other games, it was their first pick on red side too, so I think there's just some comfort for Chrisberg on that too. Lulu is still up and available, so we can see that infamous lane again. And Taxa early into jungle rotation, going straight back to Lee Sin.
So I like this. Oh, go on.
I feel like this might have been part of the reason they were forcing him off those higher tier jungle picks like the Graves and the Trundle, moving him towards the Lee Sin that he does typically default for, and then maybe calling out the fact that he hasn't been able to get the success from necessarily playing through mid on that champion.
So I do like that they aren't immediately opting into an enchanter here. I like this a lot actually, because the Fresh has actually been opened up the whole time. If you were to immediately opt into Karma, if you were to immediately opt into Lulu, that will be the immediate response by Nordavind, and then they have a very safe bot lane versus your preferred style of dive. Xayah Rakan would be a very curious bot lane that we haven't seen for a while. On 6, it's basically impossible to dive, and it's very easy to set up dives with.
I was going to say, this is interesting that you started out by saying that Nordavind might be a Nordavind light. Okay, never mind. I'm just going to scratch that point because I did think Naughty was going to lock in that in Italy. Instead, we're seeing the Volibear coming in here instead. Question is, are they going through the thresh where they really want to play aggressive in that lane and just let Naughty be, or not Naughty, but just let Momus be weak side on this Volibear? Or are we actually just going to see the Lulu? It's going to be neither. It seems like Ericsson back to comfort here with this Zoe pick.
Not sure about the Zoe pick there. It'll just be immediately responded to by Twisted Fate. Now you have the option to go fresh yourself because you didn't lock yourself into Xayah Rakan just by picking the Xayah. And then you actually have a lot of burst potential on their enchanters early on. And you have a very, very safe lane if you opt to play away from them and play into the Volibear instead. So pretty good rotation so far. Lulu could potentially be flexed as well, but I think fresh is so valuable, especially given you already have the Lee Sin, that it may be worth for you to move in anyway. I'm not sure about doing a LeBlanc here. Ooh, okay, that's interesting.
Actually, are going with it. It's decent knockdown, I think, but if you are fast enough as a Lulu, you are able to cancel the quickness coming in from Rakan when he comes in with the grand entrance too. It comes down to some mechanical plays there in that matchup, but overall, there's always pressure from Rakan's side from level 1. So let's see how they are going to utilize this. I hope that we're going to see Taxa now with this Lee Sin going on to actually facilitate the mid lane, so they're able to go through and play for the bot lane, especially when you got Xayah Rakan going up for you now.
But I think it's something we've typically seen from XL is that the emphasis will be on playing through bot. And it is a good facilitator for Kasing, who they have a tendency to lean towards with these plays. I am interested, though, for that mid lane pick, because we have seen hat-tricks leaning towards these champions that are just going to purely roam down towards bot. The setup hasn't always been there, but I think it is something you want to look to use, because the dive about that sort of level 6 point, we do typically expect to see from XL, and it would be no different to see in this game.
Yeah, so far we've seen hat-tricks on Galio and on Twisted Faith. So not only do they just have the opportunity to roam when they've got pressure, they literally got global ultimates, or Galio, almost a global ultimate. But that's just been the style they've been playing for so far. Last time they played this, listen, they went for the Twisted Faith, but they weren't successful in how you were supposed to play that 2v2 out, at least not in my opinion here. So it's going to be interesting to see if they're just straight up going back to that, or are they actually just going to facilitate a top lane blind pick here so they can get hat-tricks on a counter pick.
We also know that they're opting into a counter pick on mid lane in this draft already. Like, I actually agree with the bans that they're doing, because here you would want to go a counter pick on towards the volley bear, and then you'd want to see what they show for midsection, then play to that. However, as everyone's pointed out, like, it's Lee Sin Taxa, right? Whatever win condition they get on mid lane here is not going to be enough to get priority in and of itself, given that the Syndra has been immediately removed and you yourself have removed the Azir. So we do need to see the 2v2 mid jungle actually work as a 2v2 mid jungle. Ornn has come in against the Volley Bear, still a very, very strong pick. Volley Bear is essentially a Renekton in top lane right now, but this is something that can stem that tide for a while. The Orianna is probably the next best blind pick that is available. Twisted Fate is still a possibility here for sure.
Well, this is already adaptation coming in from Ericsson, because we knew that he really wanted to prioritize this Zoe in former matches. Now, it could be that it's because Zoe is banned and Orianna is literally the best option you have after that, but it could also be that you're finally comfortable on this one. So Ericsson, Orianna, I'm curious to see how it's going to pan out.
Yeah, I like the Gragas pickup as well. Obviously, wasn't as favorable last game, but into the Lee Sin. And in terms of keeping the affiliates alive, I think obviously Kindred does a great job of that. But I think for the matchup specifically, I like the Gragas here and how it'll match up. You just see the Corki coming out from hat-trick, so the package is going to be a big timer I'm looking towards. That's something they can definitely play around and will allow him to roam down towards bot side without needing the setup that we haven't seen so far from Taxa.
So first week we were talking a lot about there's two ways BTXL could go. Either we see a new BTXL where Taxa is playing heavily with his laners to shift priorities, or maybe hat-tricks like steps up and is able to be the special light that we kind of need him to be, or they start opting into heavy scaling. And this looks to me much more like they have now opted into the heavy scaling. They've realized not necessarily that strong at working together, but then why do you have Taxa on the Lee Sin still? I think this is a pretty strong composition they have going into late game scenarios. The team on the left does have the Aphelios Lulu, right? But I would imagine the Volibear and the Gragas become less relevant the later in the game that it goes. And I think itemization is pretty easy for team on the right. So it does look to me like they're opting to scaling. Curious to see how Zyra Khan goes. Those are the options that I'm seeing right now for XL.
Well, we'll see if they can play them out and play their hand and potentially deliver Nordavind their first loss, or we see Nordavind go 3-0. Let's hand over to our casters, and we'll see them very shortly.
Thank you very much, Excandro. Hello and welcome back to the caster desk as we're getting geared up and ready to go into game number 2. It's Nordavind taking on XL. Let's have a little talk about yesterday's game for XL, because a little bit of a upset there with them dropping that game. And the question on a lot of people's minds is hat-tricks able to kind of fill the Special shoes, where Special would play the 2v2 mid jungle, rotate down towards the bot side, and every resource was poured into Deadly. And yesterday, it felt like hat-tricks was not able to do that. He's trying to kind of hold the mid lane versus Sevex on the... Sevex was on the TF, and hat-tricks was on the Azir, and he just wasn't able to kind of hold him in lane to be able to deal with the bot lane. And Deadly and Kasting weren't able then to get that many resources put into them, and unfortunately, did lose them the game.
I'm just going to agree with what was said on the desk, on the fact that we haven't necessarily seen a BTXL that knows exactly what they want to do and how they want to utilize their new roster with hat-tricks popping in. A guy who played a ton of these assassins in EU Masters and now outplayed their opponent and now played his opponents, and now coming into this roster trying to fill Special shoes and trying to do the same thing that Special did that brought all the success for BTXL has just not been necessarily working out. So I do like the fact that they're going for that heavy scaling. You know, if you do get into that late game, you're never gonna lose with all that engage/disengage that you have on your team. On the other hand, I'm seeing the late game, but I also see a lot of early game power. You know, you have that Volibear that is extremely strong in the early game, and I am expecting Nolty on the Gragas to play towards that top side.
Especially with the fact that he's got that Volibear now. You've been really excited by the Volibear.
He's just so extremely strong, and especially going for the Trinity Force, every single stat on the item actually benefits the champion. You've got the Sheen for the trades, you've got the attack speed for the auto Q auto, which scales with attack speed. So the faster you attack, the more damage you're gonna do with your Q, and they reset on the auto attack. And of course, getting that movement speed from the Fades as well is just a bonus overall. I would just like to see what choice he's gonna go with his itemization here, because he might choose to go a little bit more damage-wise and try to play the Ornn on a side lane, or go from Trinity to the full tank and try to be that front line for his team later on.
He's actually gone for an invade here into Nolty's jungle, looking to deny him. So
he's going to get spotted now.
He will be spotted. So they have the information, but he's done that. There is actually a pink by XL in that jungle, so they will see Nolty move over because of that pink. So pretty well placed there. There we go. Nolty will walk over that.
The red buff is gone. That was very clever pathing by Taxa to know exactly where Nolty would choose to start from, and he's actually starving him right now. We talked about Taxa and how he likes to slow down the early game, and we had a lot of question marks. Why is he on the Lee Sin? Why is he playing the Lee Sin and not some more farm-heavy jungler instead of playing the aggression early game? And this seems to work pretty fine, because if you slow down the Gragas from getting that farm, getting these levels, and then getting the ganks in early into the game, you've pretty much fulfilled your purpose playing with an early game, with a late game composition like the likes of BTXL right now. Oh,
yeah, we'll actually get spotted out here by Nolty. And over the Lee's in the jungle. Taxa. Actually, he's gonna get himself attacked the over. There's no way Nolty's gonna let this slip. Bebop's moving forward. There's Taxa. Actually will spot out Bebop. He's got Gasting in his pocket, so feeling pretty comfortable to go for this. He's gonna at least steal away one of those Krugs, forcing Nolty's smite out. Actually, it's really nice for Taxa here, because he was smiteless, and with the crab spawning up, it now means it won't just be down to who has smite and who doesn't. So it's actually quite nice there by Taxa, that play. And it was just a heads-up play by Casting to look to try and find something, as they actually get some damage into Chrisberg.
All eyes on that bot lane. Bebop Bully went to help his jungler on that invade by Taxa, which was absolutely genius, because by forcing the Lulu to defend his own jungler, you're getting the Lulu behind in experience, and that is very crucial, because if someone will get bullied in this lane and engaged on, it will be the Yordle on the side of Nordavind. So great stuff right there from Taxa. I'm loving his pathing so far. I'm loving the bullying that he puts down onto the Gragas and sort of slowing him down from that early explosive game that we're expecting to see from Nolty.
We did see a little teaser of what Gulborg was kind of hitting on with the lockdown available to the Xayah and Rakan bot lane. Chrisberg obviously was getting chunked out a little bit there.
There was an attempted gank in the top lane, I'm pretty sure, by Nolty. No summoners burned. So you can say that Sender was very successful at negating that attempt right there from Nolty. And if there was a lane to play through,
they got the knock-up. That's going to be Chrisberg's flash. The Blade Cooler will actually lock Bebop down, but Chrisberg now looking to spread some damage with that Infernum. Great Gravitum just to lock them down. Does not result in a kill for either side, but cost Chrisberg and Bebop some summoner spells.
I'm enjoying seeing this side of BTXL, honestly, and Taxa onto the Lee Sin kind of shining and playing that early game aggression that we've so been wanting to see. You know, we talked about the fact that if one lane is gonna get bullied, it's probably gonna be that Lulu lane. She is falling behind in experience due to the Taxa invade. Very well done right there. The Gragas has also been pushed behind right now, and there was an unsuccessful gank in the top lane, so you're taking that free time that you have to put pressure onto Chrisberg down the bot lane, because if anyone is the focal point for Nordavind, that would be their ADC. They want to play around him. They've got him the shields with the Orianna and the Lulu. So the main focus right here for BTXL was to push that Aphelios as behind as possible.
No, I'm just gonna... I thought they were looking to set up a freeze in bot side, and it looks like there's not the plan. Taxa now looking for something onto Ericsson. Ericsson does have the kick, so he lands the shockwave as Taxa sinking the damage in. Hatrix looking for one more rocket, unable to find it. Just get some extra damage into Nulty though, but Hatrix not going to find himself the kill there onto Ericsson.
That is 2 ganks from Taxa on the Lee Sin. 2 summoners down for both the carries of Nordavind. All eyes on Taxa's Lee Sin because I'm expecting to see the return, especially in the mid lane. The package will very soon come in with the Corki, and it will be a very great setup for that Lee Sin to fly in and try to punish a summonerless Orianna.
This is the Taxa that I wanted to see. This is the Taxa I remember from last year when he was so comfortably picking that Lee Sin. Yesterday wasn't really the performance from him. There were questions, especially raised by you, about, he wasn't really able to do too much hat tricks. Obviously in the mid lane, not really being enabled. And it feels like now starting to play towards his bottom mid, kind of leaving top on an island. And I think that's okay for Sendo. Sendo's okay just kind of quietly farming up. Chrisberg has to be careful, but they do spot out Taxa, so they know he's there. Taxa may actually just look to start up this Ocean Dragon, sorry. Although, actually decides to walk back towards the lane. No, there we go.
Bot lane should be very close to hitting that level 6, but unfortunately, they do not have the priority into mid lane to push that hard for that dive. And as you can see, they're doing the dragon, and Nordavind is trying to reply with something of their own, but very, very clever by Sendo is backing off to not give anything in return to Nordavind, but some experience and gold that's been lost underneath his tower.
Yeah, use the Call of the Forge God. More for wave clear than anything there from Sendo. Rift Herald spawns up now. And not that typical lane swap we see with the AD carries. It was just a pretty neutral trade of objectives there. We'll have to see how that gets implemented, though, from the side of Nordavind, because getting that early Dragon, early Herald, could allow them to play to the top side. Something you said you wanted to see with this Gragas Volibear. Enable them to get some place, enable them to kind of snowball and become that really brute force tank that we all kind of started to fear. As Taxa actually is making his way over. It's going to jump in with a ward hop, gets the kick, unable to get the kill in time, and Nulty with the cast can be able to disengage. That was so close. Meanwhile, Sendo taking a little trade versus Mummus, but is going to get sent packing. Hatrix has that package. And Orc said on the desk he wanted to see how it gets implemented. Well, there you go. Drops it onto Ericsson. Ericsson gets knocked up and taken out. First blood for Taxa.
Talked how important that package was. Hatrix picks it up to try and stop the Herald play. Wasn't able to, but remember yet again, that Orianna is summonerless. She's pushed way too far into lane and instantly punished. Although Nordavind was lucky enough to be able to get away with a very quick Rift Herald right there that Taxa almost stole and tried to utilize that on a side lane. If that was me, I would most likely pop it down for the Volibear up top to completely open up a lane and try and get him ahead and free him onto the map to try and help some side lanes as well.
Looks like for now, XL are just going to fit some farm here in this bot side. Push the wave up. Probably try and get a plate or two as well.
Deadly has been playing a very safe game. They have never been threatened because as much as Rakan and Zaya are very much anti-dive lane, they're also a very great dive lane. And we have seen that Nolty doesn't necessarily play in this game around Chrisberg and Bebo Bully. So they had to play extremely cautious ever since Chrisberg's flash went down. Now that it's back up, you do still have that Taxa's Lee Sin that is always lurking around the bot side. So there's always the fear to not over pressure. And this Lulu is still behind in experience, so you can't bully her around.
Oh, look at the damage going into Chrisberg. He gets the wild growth on. They do get the roots. The Blade Caller was used there by Deadly. Doesn't actually find anyone with the Feather Storm, though. Now, that was pretty close. Nulty's waiting in the wings. He's got the cask. He's got the Herald. But also, Taxa's down here. Both of the junglers looking to put some pressure into this bot side. Taxa will get spotted out by Nulty here. Spots himself out as well. So they have the information about who's who.
They're bringing Hatrix down as well. What a surprise. Every time there's a dive going on in the bot lane, Hatrix is being called down from his mid lane. But ever since both of the bot lane ultimates have been expended, I don't think there is a possibility for a dive right there. They tried to take the chance when the Lulu was still level 5 and very susceptible to dying. It didn't pan out for them. That's okay. Rinse and repeat.
I feel like this answers some of the questions as well we had yesterday from XL. Hatrix controlling the lane better, rotating around the map better. It's not quite the special level we saw, but he is still looking to play towards his bot side. Taxa definitely having a vastly better game than he did yesterday as well. The Nordavind, they're still doing fine.
We had a debate yesterday. It was like, maybe Taxa shouldn't really have played Lee Sin because it doesn't fit his playstyle. Right here, he has turned his playstyle 180 degrees, and he is playing that aggression. He has taken all these summoners, which then doesn't allow Nordavind carries to push through a lane, which then frees Kasing to roam around the map, which we never see. This is something completely new coming in from BTXL.
Well, this is what you wanted to see.
I want
them
to see
enabling the top lane. Nolty's up here.
Uh-oh.
Sendo does have that ultimate available to him. Mumus is a little bit low, but he does have that ultimate, remember, so he's going in with a Skybreaker. Mumus just crushes Sendo. The Eye of the Herald will get cracked open. This should just be first turret blood going over the side of Nordavind. A great gank there in the top side as Deadly doing what Deadly does best. Just AFKing bot lane and picking up farm for himself.
That was a great move right there from Nordavind. Get some early cash into the Volibear. Now he has the Trinity Force. He will be a menace in the team fights to come. Trinity Force is huge on this guy. We mentioned how he does benefit from every single stat on this item, and you'll see that the damage that he will be able to output in the next fights to come, and I'm guessing right now onto the Dragon incoming, will be huge. And I'm also loving the rotation of everyone else from Nordavind popping into the mid lane and forcing the TP from Hatrix to try and defend.
All right, well, that Triforce now finished up onto Mumus. He's pretty strong right now. Deadly obviously firing up a Storm right on the Xayah. This is what we saw last year from him. There were so many games where he was like either be behind in lane or would just be like equal in lane, like he was to Chrisberg. And he would just be left alone to get as much experience and as much farm as possible. The amount of times he just flame horizoned people just from AFK farming was insane. It looks like they are looking for a play onto the Volibear. Mumus forced to flash over the wall, and now Nolty's making his way, and the teleport being used.
What's the package?
Be careful. Taxa finds himself the kick. Not going to get that insect, but that's the package getting dropped onto Hatrix into a massive blade cooler. Sendo with a full-man knock-up, making another free. XL are just destroying everyone on the side of Nordavind. Game over pings come up, and XL with the ace.
That was huge! There was not a single crucial CC ability that didn't hit multiple people right there. XL pulled the right play. They get hat-tricks to go back to base, sacrifice some minions in the mid lane just to get this play down. And in the end, sure, it's not even securing that Infernal, but BTXL take 2 more objectives in the map, as well as feeding their carry some kills. That was genius coming in from BTXL. And again, you will see they're turning the attention onto the Volibear, forcing to get really low. And that was a great package coming in from Hatrix and Sendo. Oh my God! That triple, quadruple knockup right there. Add insult to injury for Nordavind. They completely just dismantled them. That is great stuff. From a late game composition to pull this off early into the game, I'm loving the new iteration of BTXL.
Sendo coming into that fight saying, welcome to the Ram Jam. You're in my bounce house. Everybody was just on a trampoline in that game for the side of, in that team fight for the side of Nordavind.
Oh, this was very crucial. You see that the Essence River as well as a BF sword has been completed. Chrispec's Aphilis is still sitting off components from the Infinity Edge, so the Xayah is incredibly much stronger at this point in the game. And you see that the Corki almost has the Trinity Force completed right there. Once this 2-item power spike is finished and the mana meme is converted into the Muramana, you'll see them trying to force more and more. And now with the addition of Shelly right there, they can choose to pop open yet another lane, which is the top lane that's still standing.
That is Orcs' favorite animation in the game. Volibear just gut punching towers when he auto attacks him. It's so funny. Mumus able to take down that bot lane turret for himself. He's farming up pretty well here. They were actually going for a cheeky invade to steal away this blue buff. Fairly big denial from Hatrix, to be fair. Because obviously he wants to be spamming those rockets. And what did I say? Deadly just doing deadly things. He's just left alone to farm up. He always has Kasing waiting about, but never really in range. You can see that because Kasing is down 2 levels to Deadly right now. Deadly with a 30 CS lead over Chrisberg.
And this is what we've been trying to look for, you know, Kasing roaming together with his jungler, getting some power onto the Taxa. Instead, he has always been the entire map facilitating for that bot lane duo, Deadly and Kasing. I'm loving what I'm seeing right now from BTXL. They are stepping up and their macro has been insane. None of them has died except from Sendu, which was, let's be honest, it was an inevitable death up the top lane. But other than that, the whole game has been played flawlessly. They are 3,500, 4 almost K ahead at this point, and for a late game team scaling up, that is very good news. Trinity Force also completed onto hat-tricks right now. Game is on for BTXL.
Absolutely. Tax also stealing away some jungle. Taxing that away from the side of Nordavind. Sendo, it's going to take a little bit of damage here from him as the Sky Splitter comes down, but they have that Call of the Forge got to work with. He gets himself the knock up. The cask isn't going to be enough. Nolty has to go golden. Mumus taking a lot of damage from Deadly. That's going to be the ultimate thrown down by Mumus, though. Deadly trying to layer out the damage as the Gravitum will lock the members of XL in place. A shutdown is picked up, but Hagtrace is just pumping out the damage from the sideline on the Corki. It's a 1-for-1 for Nordavind there.
That was a 4v4 that BTXL opted into. They were the first ones to lose a member, but yet again, they are just so much stronger. And the hat-tricks on the Corki was not even there for the start of it. Ericsson as well onto a side lane. Yet again, they do trade 1-for-1. Sendo is the one that has opened the satchel of deaths, and he's kind of like putting coins into it. But it's fine. Sometimes you gotta sacrifice one of the members in your team for the greater good. And right now, the greater good was another tower that went down, making it even harder for the Chrisberg and Ericsson to pull away from their towers and try to CS.
Well, let's have a little look at that team fight again. Almost interrupting the ultimate from Sendo with the cask, but we weren't able to do so.
Again, you see that Bebo Bully did the utmost into this fight, but they are just locking damage. Right now, the second hat-trick goes in, just completely blows up the Nolty on the Gragas right there, and it's just, the power spikes are just huge that are hitting in for the side of BTXL right now. And guess what? It's power spikes right now. Doesn't get any better later into the game. We're gonna have to opt to see the Orianna having that death cap later on into the game. We're gonna have to see the Aphelios reach that death stance.
There's the package available to Hat-Tricks. He's just gonna drop it on Chrisberg. Chrisberg's forced to flash. And Bebop takes so much damage from those rockets. Now Deadly do a little bit there, but actually gets cast towards his team. Tips the hat. Thank you very much.
Again, we talked about how hard it will be for the carries of Nordavind to try and pull away from the towers and get that farm. And you see the second Chrisberg overextends just a tiny bit from his inhibitor tower, gets instantly punished by hat-tricks. They are not giving you a single centimeter to work with here. If you overextend, you get instantly punished. The next fight is going to be extremely hard for Chrisberg since he doesn't have his flash available, and that flash kick is looking even sweeter for Taxa for this one.
20 minutes on the clock. The gold lead is 4,000 over the side of BTXL. Infinity Edge, Essence Reaver picked up onto Deadly. Hat-Trick's got his Manamine and his Trinity Force. As the ornaments are coming through for Sendo. He's upgraded his Abyssal Mask and his Forge Fire Cape. So XL very, very comfortable right now. Sendo 1 level away from handing out the Trinity Fusion or the Molten Edge to either Hat-Tricks or Deadly. Curious to see which one he actually opts for Hat-Tricks, because Hat-Tricks most likely next will get the Infinity Edge, so maybe they wait until Hat-Tricks gets that and get double Molten Edge. We'll have to see.
At this point, it is Hat-Tricks dealing the AP damage, and there is no magic resist itemization. Apart from a little Mercury's onto Mumus on the Volibear, there's absolutely zero itemization versus that all AP damage that's coming in. And Deadly might have to step a little bit further forward to do the damage. So I think upgrading Hat-Tricks' Trinity Force first would be more beneficial for the long-range damage that he'll be able to output.
Hat-Tricks is going to answer out into Mumus to split push. Mumus has been a threat in the side, but now he's under threat in this side lane. He's getting collapsed on by Sendo. They are looking to hunt him down here, or at least Sendo is.
Oh, face to
We'll
face.
find Mumus. Slow goes down from the Sky Splitter. Mumus just gets himself a Thundering Smash stun, and he's out of there.
And you see that they can pull this, but on the other side of the map, there is nothing going on for Nordavind.
Oh, Cast comes into a two-man knockup from Kasing. Kick goes out by Taxa. Kasing is going to get sent packing. The teleport has been used. The Graviton locks him in place. That's a massive ultimate by Chrisberg. Sendo needs to find the big knockup. Only gets it onto one as Hatrix looks to join into the fray. He's doing so much damage here on the Corki. Chrisberg sniping over the wall, though, will be able to dissuade the members of XL away. And actually, it looks like XL are the ones who just bit off a little bit more than they can chew as they lose their support for nothing. So it looks like they're not quite done here. Instead of flashes, misses out on the knockup. The Graviton will knock him in place. The Shockwave lands onto 2. And here looks to be the turnaround for Nordavind. XL's health bars are just too low. They have to try and get away with the Valkyrie. Chrisberg still hot on the hunt here.
Oh, baby, he missed the Q right there on his sniper. Had he hit that, the root would follow up from his Graviton. That was crucial dodge right there. I'm pretty sure it was Hatrix, or it would have meant his death. And Nordavind managed to find some crucial picks out of overconfidence from BTXL. Hatrix, though.
Oh, that's a lot of damage from both sides there.
Can't fight the 200 years of experience, man. It's impossible.
When he's got red means dead.
He's got the deadly duo. He's got
that
the
is
chakrams right there.
If you're going to 1v1 an Aphelios, if he has the white and red gun, you can't beat it. It just is impossible.
And also, Corki is a champion that wants to be playing really up close and personal for his E to hit you as well. And that is the best combination for Aphelios because his sakrams will be coming back. The closer he is on the target, the closer they bounce back. They're sort of like a frisbee. So that was literally the perfect timing for Chrisberg to take this 1v1. I think Hatrix learned it the easy way because he didn't end up losing anything on this fight.
Deadly not been able to get as far as a Chrisberg as I thought he may do, but he has kind of been pulled to play with the team a little bit more than as is standard for Chrisberg. For Deadly. And they haven't actually kind of invested to the point where they start just giving him every jungle camp as his spawns as well. Is a thing XL did last year. Oh, sorry, last season. For the moment, Deadly level 13, got a level over Chrisberg.
It's going to be extremely difficult to try and face check BTXL because Kasing on this Rakan is a huge threat. And if you face check that, you're most likely instantly dead by all this damage that BTXL can pump out. Now they're forcing them to come and face check this and possibly get a turnaround on them.
This is a very quick Baron if XL left alone. Nordavind very much aware of that as Nolty's trying to do something about it. His half elf onto the Baron. Instead, it lands from knock out the package. She gets dropped by Hatrix. He does find himself polymorph and shut down by the ulti. The fight is spread on all fronts as Taxa surviving with the skin of his teeth. Mumus trying to sink a little bit more in as Chrisberg spreads the Inferno and Mumus looks to try and turn the damage back around. Kasing almost dies. Deadly does get slowed, but he's inside that pink ward and Deadly can't quite pull enough feathers down to find the kill, to find the stun. XL trade out 1-for-1 here. Nordavind answering them very efficiently in these team fights.
Indeed, I'm extremely surprised this went the way it did for Nordavind, specifically with the 1.5 items that they sort of have onto the Orianna, but the Volibear was so crucial right there to split the complete BTXL open, and you saw Hatrix dive in heads in to the entire Nordavind team. With a Lulu, you're not necessarily gonna survive if the polymorph goes down. BTXL, now that they're like, it's fine, we lost yet another one, we'll focus yet again onto these objectives. Objectives have been the name of the game for BTXL. They're fighting around them, they're getting their advantages around them, and yet again, they're 1 point away from Soul.
And we actually do see Deadly gets his Molten Edge upgraded, so they actually do kind of do the XL special there. You were saying you'd rather the Triforce, but they go, no, we like our AD carry.
I mean, listen, after seeing Hatrix diving in like that, I would probably upgrade the Infinity Edge, right? Because Deadly stays alive for longer, which means he'll be able to output damage for longer into the fight. It was the correct play.
Let's say Hatrix is building towards his Death Dance. This is his next item.
Oh, you said the banned word right here, the illegal word. Death's Dance. I'm not sure how close Chrisberg is to it. He does have the scepter right there, so he's pretty far away from it.
He's going to do a good dodge there from Deadly. Deadly just flashes into Harrison's face, takes him out. Nolty looking for an opening. The teleport's being used from both of the top laners as Mumus gets a stun onto Deadly. Deadly's so low. They're trying to keep him alive, but they find the shutdown. Mumus will finally fall, but Chrisberg, 4 HP. Nolty gets knocked up and taken down. Sendo finds himself on knockup. Hatrix continues to pump the damage out. Chrisberg forced to flash away as Hatrix is trying to find Bebop. Can't quite find him, but here comes the Corki onto the flank. He's got Taxa in his pocket, and Bebop will get polymorph, but he's going to go down momentarily. Chrisberg will fall. Bebop will fall. XL find another ace.
We've talked about how important it is for that Orianna to stay alive, for the fights to continue happening, and BTXL Deadly, he shows you exactly why he should be respected. When he's left alone in the side lane to farm his heart out, when he's given all the upgrades first from the Ornn, he shows you why he should be respected, why he should be feared, that he has 3.5 items right now onto him. He flashed blindly to follow Ericsson's Orianna right there, and he was given all the goods for that bravery movement right there. You get the Orianna down, that means Nordavind cannot continue the fights going, and that showed. They opted into a full V5 without their mid laner, and it kind of went south. So great dodge right there from Deadly. He just brute forces his way through the wall, ends Ericsson right there, and then great flank from Mumus right there, tried to put an end on the Deadly Madness, cashing in the 1k gold as well. But we talked about this, it's really hard when you don't have the Orianna there to try and zone away the members of BTXL and give that space for Chrisberg to pop auto attack after auto attack. Chrisberg also does not have the ideal guns to take this 4v5 fight if he wished to take it, so they all end up going down and they lose Baron for it as well.
And you were saying as well that you feel that this game would be decided by the mid laners. You felt like they were going to be the ones that kind of have the most impact here. And to be fair, Ericsson's shockwaves have been some of the deciding kind of factors that have won, or at least equalized out the fights for Nordavind. And Hatrix, like in that last fight, just went completely untouched, and he did so much work. Even with Deadly being down, the person who's normally the one that all the resources get poured into. Both of the mid and AD carry, 314 CS apiece, 4-1 and 5-1. That's the Trinity Fusion finished up for Hatrix now with that Death Dance in his pocket. Hatrix is going to be doing a lot of damage, as that was just a rocket landing onto Bebop. And the 1-4 starting up.
Again, remember that Lulu has been behind the entire time, and now you can't do anything because you have all this poke coming in from the Corki. Oh my god, that's the poke we were just talking about, and if you shield someone else, then you lose.
That was what we call a nap. Mumus gets knocked up. A little bit optimistic coming out from Sendo, but it did buy some space for the mid to crack open, and XL should be able to take down this inhibitor. Sendo quite happy just holding Mumus at bay on this volley bear. XL are just going to back off as Hatrix drops the package to get a little bit closer, and they're going to continue to use their Baron in this top side. If they can crack here, it means no one should contest them at that Cloud Soul.
And look what Deadly Kasinga are doing. They're going all the way down the bot side to put the Baron buff over there as well. Create a 3-lane pressure right here with the buff. BTXL are playing such a by the book game. It is actually flawless to look at. For the rest of the teams in their group, please take notes, because if you're gonna play the late game, you can also play the early game. BTXL have completely showed us how to do that. They've cracked open yet another inhibitor tower, and the third one is gonna end up going down as well.
Hatrix is just mincing Mumus' health bar, taking so much off him. Actually gonna force him to use the ultimate to try and stay alive. Now they're like trying to find something onto Sendo. Sendo will get caught out by the cast. The shockwave will clip him, but Hatrix remains to put out the damage as he gets the knockup. XL looking for the turnaround. Chrisberg looks to join into the fight here. Though he does take a kick from Taxa though, and they look to back off. All of the inhibitors go down. It feels like both our games today have just been by the book League of Legends. Every structure that can be taken will get taken as Katin jumps in with a grand entrance, gets himself a big old charm off. Deadly continues to fire away with Hatrix. They do find a shutdown onto Taxa, but they do also get a kill in response. XL taking yet another turret with the minions while they're just keeping everybody onto that fountain. Mumus can't step off. He can't heal quick enough. Deadly throws the ultimate down. They're trying to get some damage into Taxa, but they can't get it. And this will just be the end of the Nexus. 30 minutes on the clock. XL play a flawless game versus Nordavind.
That was a great display on how to play the early game with Lee Sin. Taxa, if I had a hat, I'd be taking it off right now because that was a beautiful display on how you don't necessarily take kills with the Lee Sin early into the game, but the pressure alone, putting the Lulu behind, putting the Gragas behind, nullifying completely all the presence and pressure that Naughty should have had in this game. That was beautiful. Every single one of them stepped up, hat tricks onto that Corki in the mid lane, dominating every single package. Except one. And every single fight, Sendu fine. He was the recipient. He was cashing in into his pouch of death. But you know what? Someone has to do it. The whole machine worked so well. It was very well oiled today. Congratulations to BTXL. They looked like truly the #1 seed that we expected them to be.
Yeah, definitely the XL that we predicted coming in to this season of the NLC. And bit of a 180, like you said, in the cast from Taxa on that Lee Sin. He looked so much more comfortable, so much better on it. Better game from hat tricks as well. And that just enabled them to play around Deadly, which is what they love to do. Now, with that, XL do get themselves a win. We are going to cut to a quick break, and we'll let the analyst desk break that down afterwards. So don't go anywhere. We'll be back in a minute.
Well, XL certainly bounced back. They did well and can find themselves back on winning trends again. Let's talk about that game, though. Let's start off with the idea behind the composition veteran. It felt like this was a team that was built to have strong skirmishes around neutrals, but maybe lacking somewhat in the execution, although there definitely were some good fights around neutral objectives.
I mean, there were definitely points where XL looked like they were a lot more desperate than they perhaps needed to be. There were plenty of times where they started trying to randomly engage in lanes rather than just wait for that next objective to come up, wait to be able to bait them in for the perfect fight. But even when they were doing that, like for example around Baron, they were very uncoordinated in that regard. They seemed a lot more desperate to close out the game than they perhaps had to be. They seemed to be a lot more afraid that the game might fall out of their hands than they had to be. But overall, the composition is just so strong in 5-on-5s. This being a perfect example, their initial 5-on-5 skirmish that they won, even though Nordavind's rotations before this point were actually really, really good, the strength of their skirmishing composition came in and it looked like they just really wanted to replicate that over and over again. But it's a very situational specific thing, this being like one of the examples of them really trying to force it when they didn't have to. If you have this composition moving into all the time, they don't have enough poke to really benefit from a stalemate. So you don't really need to force in lane like they are here. You can just wait for Baron up and then you just have to make sure you coordinate, not like this where Hatrix is trying to 1v3 off to the side, trying to sidestep polymorph for whatever reason. But if you do it properly, then, you know, it actually works out really well like it did in the initial instance. They seemed a bit more desperate than they perhaps had to be. So there were some issues in execution, but overall, much better game from them. Really strong performance from Deadly as well. But we can say that after almost every game. I'm actually really impressed by how he's performing so far.
I think we should obviously do justice to Nordavind and talk a little bit about how they played and maybe where they fell short a little bit in this game, because it definitely felt like they had some fight in them, Goldborg. Like it did feel like Nordavind had an idea, but they just weren't quite getting it over the finishing line.
Yeah, and to understand what Nordavind actually did right, I need to answer one of the questions we asked earlier today. Will Taxa actually sacrifice some of his camps actually to play through his laners, which he did. Some may say too much every now and then, and that's when Nolty came into the picture too, because he was actually really good at coming in and punishing on these camps. He actually, his side of the map with camps actually had a higher average XP than they did on the side of the Lee Sin camps. So potentially he was setting himself up really well. The same could be said for the top side of the map. I think Momus played it really well with the 0 resources he got in the early game until later where Naughty came up and really just gave him the tower for free. If you ask me, maybe he got too many resources. I feel like sometimes it was a bit mismatched between the Nordavind roster where and when they wanted to play for their lanes. I felt it was skewed towards the pathing from Naughty where sometimes his bot lane needed help, but his camps on the top side was up, so he sacrificed the tempo he had gotten, and that's why I kind of felt like it went wrong for Nordavind. I liked the early game initially and their plan, but then the decision making started interjecting each other.
Yeah, and I like there was that opportunity. They managed to sneak off the Herald on the top side. They made a good rotation where they put that down in the top lane. And as much as the resources on the Mumbus weren't ideal, they managed to cover the bot lane tower, so they weren't even trading evenly in that regard. But it just felt like after that first dragon fight, when they just got clean aced, the momentum was just gone. The wind was out of their sails. And it felt like they were playing a very defensive game and really waiting for XL to make mistakes. And sure, XL did have some sloppier fights, but it wasn't really enough for them to give away the lead and the team fighting prowess that they had.
Yeah, and I think some of those team fights did really go in favor of XL. And I think the setup from Kasing as well, playing on that Rakan was excellent. And actually, speaking of Kasing, have him ready to go and talk to me in an interview. So, hey, mate, nice to see you.
Hello, nice to meet you all. Nice to be back.
Yeah, good to be back, Ray. I hope you're doing well. Good to get a win on the board again, obviously after a disappointing loss yesterday, but nonetheless, you're bouncing back. Veteran was talking about, it felt like you guys were trying to force some fights in that game. Did you feel like you were on a timer versus Nordavind, or did you just sort of see opportunities and you wanted to take them?
I think it all came down to how we played yesterday. So I think our gameplay yesterday, we pretty much played quite passively, I would say, even though we were in like a position of lead, right? We should be able to either force on our terms or be able to set up vision and control areas that we know that they have to contest. Or initially, most of the times we tried to fight, it was like, it looked quite sloppy, I would say. But I think overall we kind of knew that we would outscale with having Zaya, Rakan, with Corki as well. I think overall compositional wise we had a stronger like team comp. So I think we always kind of knew that we would be like able to win in the end. But I think the way that we fought earlier, I think that came with just yesterday we were kind of like frustrated, right? Because we didn't really we weren't able to fight. So today we kind of just tried to look for fights that, even though some of them were a bit of a flip, and I think one I didn't do so well on mid, and I flashed and W'd, but I shouldn't have done that. But yeah, it was just different today.
At the end of the day, you pulled out the win, and that's the most important. You actually had a lot of talk about Deadly being a lot of guys rating him one of the most consistent players on your team, and has been, I think, over the last 2 splits. Maybe I know you were really keen to have Deadly as your AD carry on the UK roster. How do you rank him in the NLC? Like, do you think he's top 1 for sure, or where do you see Deadly in terms of the sort of power ratings of AD carries?
I mean, I'm playing with Deadly, right? So I kind of have to say.
No, of course.
But regardless of whether I have to say or not, I mean, he is performing really, really well. Like, I think he is someone I've played with like for the past 3 years, actually, like on and off duo, like even when I was playing in other teams. So he's someone that I'm really good friends with. I would say in terms of NLC rating, I would say he's number 1. Like, even though of course there are other contenders like Xmati, for example, I think Deadly is just a stronger player individually.
Yeah, and I think from what we've seen from his play on XL over the last 2 splits, very few people will probably be able to contest that, although there's very good AD carries in our league, of course. Obviously, one of the biggest moves for you has been hat tricks in the mid lane. Has there been any adaptation to the way that you play, or is it just kind of he's slotted into the way that XL were designed to play?
I mean, you can kind of see, like, based on our first 2 games, right? Hatrix brings kind of like a more team-orientated approach in terms of like how he plays his lane and how he like shifts his prio into other lanes. Whereas with Special, it's more about us playing for him. I mean, he would carry, right? And he's the type of guy that wants the resources and wants to have like the counter match, for example. And I think with Hatrix, it's kind of opened up more choices for us as a team. So it's taken some time to kind of get used to. But I think Hatrix right now is started really, really well. Even though, of course, we lost yesterday, but I think it's better that we lose now compared to like last split. Even if you go undefeated, it doesn't mean you're going to win the finals. So
of course, yeah, and I think you guys should be. And obviously, we're expecting big things from you across the NLC. So, Ray, thank you for joining me, mate. And I'm sure we'll speak to you again as XL continues to do well. And yeah, we'll see you soon.
Thank you, man. Have a sorry.
You know what, guys? I'm just going to leave it there, guys. Let's move on. We're going to our next game. We'll see you soon.